So this is our first foray into Clubhouse here. And figured, what better place to jump off and talk about the fact that rowing as a sport finally got an ESPN article. So yeah, we'll talk about the fact that we get an ESPN article, except the subject line of it is rowing is really boring. I know this.
Can anyone hear me?
I hear you.
We can hear you fine, bub.
It's like the old man tapping on the computer. Can you hear me?
I don't know, man. That article. I mean, I'm pretty mad about it, to be honest. I mean, we finally get on ESPN in some capacity, and the title is "Rowing is Boring." I mean, this guy didn't even do rowing. I mean, this is I don't know what this is. This is not a reflection of our sport at all. It's a guy who rowed across the ocean, which is an incredible feat, but by no means is it rowing. I mean, that's probably the most boring way to portray what he did. I mean, show me something, man. Was he like out there with the sharks? Was like, what was a day in the life like? I mean, we just have a guy showed up on shore 2 months later and he says rowing is boring. That's it. That's the article. I mean, he raised all this money for Alzheimer's, that stuff's great. I think that should be the highlight of the article. Not rowing is boring. I can make any sport you want boring. Give me a sport. I'll show you how to make it boring.
I mean, and that's, I feel the same way about it. I looked at it and I was like, you got to be kidding me. We finally get some exposure that, we, the four of us, always talk about, and, talk about taking 2 steps backwards. I mean, he rode 3,000 miles. Most people race 5K as they're long, 6K is long, 10K is they're long. Let's talk about that.
But that's boring too. Like, going fast is not boring. Going slow is boring. It doesn't matter. Look, like, is it boring if Deshaun Jackson burns past a guy and he gets hit with a 50-yard pass for a TD? No, it's not boring because it's fast, it's quick, something happens. If Deshaun Jackson blows past the secondary, catches a bomb, and the end zone is 8 miles away, and we just watch the dude like run for 8 miles with a football, like, I'm turning that off. It's boring, right? If LeBron James crosses over KD and makes a break for the basket, but it takes him 20 minutes to get to the basket, that game sucks now, right? So, yes.
Can I point something out here? Guys, can I point something out here? This is horse shit. The last thing of the article says, I want a Coca-Cola with a big load of lemons. By the way, old people fucking drink Coca-Cola and lemon, all right? So this thing is obviously going to be boring because the dude's 70. You put, like, a young guy in a boat, it's going to be a different story. Like, anything you do for 56 days is going to be boring. I don't care who you are. Like,
exactly.
The problem is that ESPN just didn't do a good job explaining what the hell this is all about. That's the only problem.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This isn't rowing. This is like you just went out and if you took a boat out in Atlantic City and rowed on a lifeguard boat to one of the other towns, is that rowing? I doubt this guy was in some kind of racing single out in the open ocean, right? Like, who is that? It wasn't really a race. You even said it in the article. It's like, this is about just finishing it.
Are you nervous, like, seeing like this, right? So the one thing that we always talk about is we need the sport to grow. We need it to advance. Does an article like this slow that down?
I think it does. I think it portrays our sport as, like an old guy rowing across the ocean. And it doesn't even like to me, like, any sort of, access to, like, the struggle and, like, how, like, hard it was. Like, it didn't touch on anything of that. It was just like he made it, which is a great story and a great accomplishment. But, like, and he raised money. I mean, they touched on that for a great cause, which is great. But, like, why bring the sport into it? That's not what it was. Like, slow rowing is terrible to watch. Like, we talk about seeing it on all these Instagram feeds. Like, here's a double rowing at an 18, and, like, they're all jazzed about that. I mean, that's like a running website showing a bunch of people going for a walk. Like, who would want to watch that?
Oh, it's clickbait, right? Like, this is clickbait. This is just something that some idiot from ESPN decided to write. They gave him this article to talk about. It came from Reuters, actually. And they just throw something up there that could get some people to click on it. That's all.
Well,
I mean, it makes me angry, but what are you going to do? Zach, what do you think?
I mean, it doesn't really make me angry because you just said it. It's kind of like clickbait. It's not kind of, it is clickbait. Unfortunately, our sport is one of those fringe sports which even if you're talking like ESPN, it's kind of like hockey where they don't talk about hockey unless something really interesting or something bad happened. Like it's basketball, football, baseball. And oh, by the way, there was a line brawl. Things got nasty at a Flyers Bruins game and people were suspended. That's when they cover the sport, right? That's going to be the same thing with these fringe, fencing, curling, rowing, where, oh, man rows solo around. And the people, the insiders, the rowing community, I want to speak for them and say, we kind of know it's bullshit. We know it's not boring, but the big conversation here, why we're talking about it today, is if you are an athlete that have these preconceived notions about what our sport is, and then they see on ESPN, see, look, I told you rowing is boring because this article says it.
Well, do you remember the last article that made national headlines, and we ended up interviewing that guy the next day?
Which one was that?
Dunkley.
Oh, yeah.
Dunkley.
Yeah.
Oh, Dunkley, right.
Right. I mean, so look, I think our sport is so bad and so boring that even headline news like this won't make a difference.
Here's the other thing is I think I know for a fact we talked about this on one of the episodes of Coaches Yelling, where, our sport is so broad, kind of like skiing. And anything that has to do with rowing, it's lumped together in this, bag of excrement that is rowing. Is it across the continent or across the ocean rowing? Is it sprint rowing? Is it dragon boat racing? Is it surf boat? It doesn't matter because it's rowing. Where skiing, there's downhill skiing, there's cross country skiing, there's super G, there's X game. Like each one is different. But unfortunately for our sport, if there's 2 oars and water, it's the same sport.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, you're right.
Well, then we got to do something to make it more clear, right? Because this isn't kayaking, it's not canoeing, it's not dragon boating, and there's a lot of people that can do it really fast and explosively. And there's ways to set up great races that can be spectator friendly. But I don't know. I think it's sad that it's getting lumped in to what this is.
Well, I think, this article aside, whatever this article says, kind of is what it is. Unfortunately, it's just not the article we want. But, this is kind of what we're hoping to do with articles in the news is, once a week or so, Zach, Mike, Alex, we'll all figure out what makes sense to do this. But once a week, twice a week, we want to jump on 10, 15 minutes and talk about an article about rowing in the news, just like this.
Well, hopefully they don't write an article about the person who came in 10,000th place in the marathon next week, because that would be so bad for runners.
All right. That's it, guys.
Thanks, man. That was fun.
Can't wait for next one.
Later.
See you.